Hi, grade 11. So today I'm going to give you some instructions on how to complete this week's activity, which is going to be your 32 reactions activity. Okay. Unlike previous weeks, we just have one activity that you're going to be working through this week that should take you the full 3 hours assigned for this week's work. This is going to act as our Unit 2 assessment. We had hoped that we would be back in school and able to write our Unit 2 test and do a Unit 2 formal lab that we were supposed to complete when we returned from March break. But because it doesn't look like we're going to be back at school, at least until May 31st, we're going to move forward and do an assessment for Unit 2. So just to remember before you start to attempt your Unit 2 work, okay, if you go to classwork, you will have to scroll down a bit because we have had lots of activity posted. You'll probably have to press view more, okay? You still do have the link to the Unit 2 resources. So if you click there, these are all the activities that were posted for you back before we left for March break. Okay, remember this unit was pretty short. It just had our 5 lessons, so nomenclature and our predicting products of chemical reactions. You have already been tested on the nomenclature. We did do, if you remember, that naming assignment. Okay, the answer key is posted here, and that mark has been posted on Google Classroom. This next activity is going to be focusing on the lessons on predicting products of reactions. Now, the reactants are listed in word formula, and you will have to convert them into chemical formulas. So this stuff that we did before break is still important, the naming, but most of us did pretty well in that naming assignment, so I think we're pretty comfortable with our naming. Okay. But some of the 3 hours this week probably is going to be dedicated to doing a little bit of review on our single and double displacement reactions. Okay. All right. So here's what the assignment looks like. There's 2 links that are going to be posted. One is going to be a link to this worksheet right here, which is your rough work. Okay. I would suggest you either complete your rough work by directly editing this rough work doc, or on a numbered sheet of paper, fill out your answers on a blank piece of paper in a notebook before you go into submitting your responses via forms. Okay. If something happens with your internet or your computer dies or something happens and you're halfway through the assignment, you're at question 20 and you lose all that work, the only way you can guarantee that you don't lose all that work is if you don't directly put your answers into the form, but you put them into your rough work. Okay. So what you're being asked to do is, it says for each of the following descriptions, write a complete chemical equation. Okay. So that means it should be balanced. That means it should be in our chemical formulas, not our word formulas. So for example, sodium chloride, written out SODIUM space chloride, is the word formula. That's what you're given here, like sodium sulfate. You have to put that into chemical formulas. So for sodium chloride, we know that's NaCl. Okay. You're going to also then be predicting the products of that reaction. Okay. So for example, it says sodium sulfate solution is added to ammonium chloride. You're going to write out the chemical formula for sodium sulfite, write out the formula for ammonium chloride, then figure out what type of reaction that is, predict the products of that reaction, and balance it. Okay. All that rough work should be done, like I said, either directly through editing in this form or on a scrap piece of paper. Don't go directly into the form. Okay. You also have been provided with a periodic table, okay, that will be useful for this. Oops, wrong file here. Will be useful for you. The periodic table is here, okay, that we've been using all unit. Remember, the second page is also provided for you, which will be useful. That has your metal reactivity series, your non-metal reactivity series, as well as your solubility table. Okay, those are going to be useful when you're predicting, for example, your single and double displacements. So that's going to be linked for you, and that's going to be available for you for use. Okay, so like it says, use the solubility table and reactivity series to determine the products and whether or not a reaction occurs. Always include balancing, so make sure your reactions are balanced. Make sure your states are included where they should be included. So for example, in your double displacement reactions, you absolutely should be including your states. and your proper chemical formula. So you're not giving me these answers in word equations, you're giving them in chemical equations, okay? Like it says right here, complete the rough work on this page so you do not lose your work, okay? I don't want you emailing me saying, Miss, I started the form, my computer shut down and I lost all my work. You've been specifically instructed, either do it on this sheet or a rough piece of paper that's provided to you or that you have at home, okay? I may be asking you to submit that rough work to me if need be. It says, after you're complete, submit your answers via Google Forms using the format described. Now, it's really important when you're submitting it in form, you're using the format describes, okay? So I'll show you what I mean. When you go to the actual form, so after you've completed all your work and you're just submitting your final answer, you're going to get something that looks like this, okay? So it says 32 reactions assignment. There's really important instructions up here up top, okay? It says predict the product of the reaction below based on your knowledge gained from Unit 2. Sorry, that should say 2, not Unit 1. All answers should be a balanced chemical equation in the form of, so let's say I'm making A, B, and C, D as my product, okay? You're gonna have a number and there's no space in between the number and the formula. So if I have 2 NaCl, what I'm actually gonna type in is the number 2 directly go into NaCl plus the next number, CD. So there's no space in between the number and your chemical formula. Then there's going to be one space in between your formula, the plus, one space between the plus and your next number, and then the number directly with CD. This quiz is going to be marked, okay? And the easiest way for it to be marked and to make sure you don't lose any marks is if you're putting it in that correct formula. So make sure it's number, no space, then your formula, space, plus, space, number, no space, and your formula. So make sure it's your balanced chemical equations are in that form. It says if the states are required of the products, write them as, okay, so same thing, the number, the formula, and again, no space in between the state and the formula, okay? So it's the number, the formula, right away you're going to put your bracket and other S, L, G, AQ, whatever state that's required, okay? So it should look immediately like that. It also says 3, be sure to include the number required to balance unless it's a 1. If it's a 1, just leave it blank. Don't put a 1 here for one of these numbers. Also, if you find that no reaction occurs, please denote that just with an X. The X is going to tell me that you understand that no reaction moves forward. So there is an example question with an example solution for you. Okay, so here it says, for example, if the question was a calcium chloride solution was added to a sodium sulfate solution. It says in brackets, sodium product written first, calcium product written second, states required. Okay, so first I'm going to write out calcium chloride solution. Okay, so calcium is Ca with a 2+ charge, chlorine is Cl with a 1- charge. So when I crisscross those charges, I'm going to be left with CaCl2. It tells me it's a solution, so it's aqueous. I'm going to then add a plus, and there's a space between my aqueous and my plus, and a space between my next product. Now I'm also writing the, then I'm going to write, sodium sulfate, okay? Sodium we know is Na, which has a 1+ charge. Sulfate is SO4 with a 2- charge. So when I crisscross, it's going to be Na2SO4. It's also told me it's a solution, so that's aqueous. Okay. If I look at this, I have calcium chloride aqueous and sodium sulfate aqueous. I have 2 compounds, and it's not one of my special cases, so I know this is going to be a double displacement reaction. Okay. So these 2 products are going to switch partners. Now, it specifically tells me in the question to write my sodium product first. So I'm going to write sodium first with its partner. Sodium's partner is now chlorine, so it's going to be sodium chloride. I have sodium has a 1+ charge, chlorine has a 1- charge, so it's going to be NaCl. If I look up my solubility, okay, chlorine is a halogen, so I'm going to look down at my halides. Okay, They are all very soluble with these exceptions. Sodium is not one of the exceptions. So it's going to be aqueous. Okay. And I'm also going to make, then my calcium product is going to be written second. So I'm going to write calcium. It's got a 2+ charge. Is now going to be with sulfate, which has a 2- charge. If I crisscross those 2's, they're going to cancel each other out. So I'm just going to be left with CaSO4. Again, if I go back and look at my solubility table, SO4 is right here. Most of them are very soluble, but if I look, calcium is one of the exceptions. So calcium is going to be a solid. Okay. Now, if I go back to balance this, I have 1 calcium, 2 sodium, so I need to put a 2 here. 2 chlorine, I now have 2 chlorine, and 1 sulfate, so I'm balanced. Okay, so I know I have 2 NaCl and CaSO4 solid as my products. Now, you are writing in your answer just the products. You're not writing the reactants. So anything before the reaction arrow, you don't have to put in the form. Okay, so my answer is going to be written as the number 2 without a space, NaCl without a space, and then put the states, aqueous. It even specifically said in the question, states are required. Okay. Then I am going to put a space in between the plus and the end of my aqueous. Then I'm going to put another space in between calcium and the plus. I'm going to write CaSO4, then S in brackets. Okay. Now, this seems like a lot of instructions, but it's really important that you're following this format to make sure you don't miss any marks, okay? I'm going to double check and do my best to check after. But the easiest way to make sure is this is what the computer is going to be looking for. So it's really important that you're really carefully following that formula. So if this was the question, a calcium chloride solution was added to a sodium sulfate solution, sodium product written first, calcium product written second, states required, okay? I wrote my sodium product first, I wrote my calcium product second, I've included my states, and I followed these rules up here. Okay. And then I'm going to put that in as my answer for the form. Okay. Now, one thing about this form, you can edit after you submit, which means, let's say you work through and you do your first 10 and you want to put them in your form. You can scroll down to the bottom, press submit. When you re-click that link, what's going to happen is it's going to say you've already responded. It says you can fill out this form only once, but you can click here where it says edit your response. Okay. And then it's going to save your previous responses as long as you press submit before you left the form. Okay. So I think this should help make sense. If you have any other questions about submitting, read those instructions really carefully one more time at the top of the form. Make sure you do the rough work before you go directly into your form so you're not missing any work. And if you're still confused, reach out to me via email. Okay? Hope you're all doing well, staying safe, and staying inside. Hopefully we'll see you soon. Thanks.